Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to introduce Courtney Gragson. She's a Master Tutor with the TECHniques Center, and she's going to be leading our presentation skills workshop today. So take it away, Courtney.
Thank you, Caitlin. I'm going to screen share and we'll get this presentation started. So thank you everybody for coming today, attending either in person or online. Today we'll be going over some presentation skills. So I want to preface it with a lot of them are some general presentation skills, but we'll also be talking about how you can use these presentation skills for a number of different presentations, whether it be for class, an assignment, or something more general like a research presentation. So yeah, you can really use these skills, bend them to whatever format you're really needing. So we'll get started. So the outline is, first I'll be going over just some general tips for presenting. So we'll go over online presentation skills, in-person presentation skills, some tips and tricks for both of those formats. And then towards the end, we'll go over visual aids, so guides as to how to create your visual aids, what they should look like, as well as some resources, so where to find places that already have some good templates for visual aids. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to structure your presentation. So what to think about before you get started, either making your visual aid or writing out your notes for your presentation. So the first thing that you're going to think about, obviously, is the purpose of your presentation. So obviously, you have to know beforehand what it's going to be for. What's going to be the purpose of the presentation? Are you needing to give information? Are you needing to persuade people? And that purpose is going to ultimately be the backbone of the presentation. Then, before you start putting it together as well, you're going to do an audience pre-assessment. So not only what is the purpose of the presentation, but who are you presenting it to? What information are they going to need to know? What order are they going to need to know the information in? And what they're going to get out of it. So ultimately, what the audience needs to get from you. And then you need to have your opening. So if you need to have a really hook, line, and sinker opening, you need to grab people's attention. That needs to be something that you need to put attention into. If it's going to be something similar to a TED Talk, find a story or a joke that's going to align with what your presentation is, but it's also going to be an attention grabber for your audience. For your body, this is going to differ. So it's going to differ in length depending on your presentation. It's going to differ in purpose if you're giving information or if you're trying to persuade people. And then your closing is going to be different as well. Sometimes you may need a call to action, and your closing needs to include that. Sometimes your closing needs to, if it's for research, you need to have your conclusion. So every part and structure, every piece of the structure of your presentation needs to be tailored to ultimately the purpose of your presentation, the audience, and what you want the audience to get out of it. So once you have your presentation structured and you're ready to go, while you're making it, especially the visual aid, there's a couple rules that are usually followed. So the first one is the 10, 20, and 30 rule. So the 10, 20, and 30 rule refers to you want to have around 10 slides for your visual aid if you're using a presentation. You want it to be around 20 minutes. Obviously, if you have other instructions for a specific length, tailor it to that. But if they kind of leave it up to you, 20 to 30 minutes is the sweet spot, especially for your presentation, for people's attention. And then 30 refers to 30-point size font. So if you have 30-point size font or bigger, that's going to be easiest for the entire audience to be able to see on your visual aid. The 6x6 rule refers to how many lines and words you should have per slide. So you will also see a 5x5 rule and a 7x7 rule. Obviously, you'll tailor it to your needs, but the typical standard is you'll have around 6 words per line and then 6 lines per slide. And so I have a visual example of that. So this is a visual example of the 6x6 rule. So you can see here on the left, this is an example of a slide that goes over key principles of visuals used in the classroom. So they have 6 bullet points, but every single bullet point has about a sentence or two of explanation afterwards. So the text has to be smaller, and it almost looks like it's in paragraph form. For the audience, this is really difficult to read and pick up on what's important on the slide. So the 6x6 rule then is used for the same thing. So it's got a very short title at the top, so they know what the slideshow is discussing is the principles of visual presentations. And then you've got your 6 points and your 6 lines, and they're all less than 6 words. So the audience knows what those 6 key principles are, and it allows them to follow you more as a presenter because they're not having to read the information from the slide. So some general tips just for presenting in general. So if you usually get nervous before presentations, I usually get nervous. If I'm not showing it now, well, then the workshop is useful. If you get nervous like me before presentations, one of the best pieces of advice that I've heard is use your nervous energy as enthusiasm. So one of the tips that I read is someone listens to hype music beforehand and gets really excited, and he filters that nervous energy into enthusiasm so that when he gets out on the stage, that nervous energy becomes excitement, and then people are more engaged because he's more excited to give his presentation. He also mentioned chugging Red Bulls, so if that's your thing, you can definitely do it. And then arrive early and adjust to your surroundings. So especially if you're giving a presentation in person and you're going to need audio visual stuff, there's a stage, you're going to want to arrive early, be able to feel out the surroundings so that when you're giving your presentation, you already have a feel for the environment and all you have to do is just give your presentation. You're going to have positive visualization. So if you're nervous beforehand and all you're thinking about is, I'm going to bomb this, people aren't going to like it, people are going to be disinterested, that's going to manifest in how you're presenting. You're going to present very nervously. You're not going to be confident. You're going to be nitpicking the audience instead of focusing on your message. So positive visualization, right beforehand, you got to tell yourself, I'm going to kill this. People are going to love it, and then what you're going to end up finding in the audience is those people who are interested. You're going to love presenting your content because it's something that you really want to give. Don't cover too much material. So like we talked about with the 20 minutes, always leave room afterwards for discussion and questions from the audience. If you cover too much content, it may be too much for the audience to absorb, and they might get disinterested. So don't cover too much material. You don't want to inundate your audience, and you want them to have questions afterwards so you can have more of a dialogue and a conversation with them. And then work on your pauses. So a lot of times beforehand, you may be nervous, you can't really fill that time limit. Pauses are a great utilization of your time. And it also gives the audience time to process the information, and it gives you time to clear your head. Pauses are also very professional looking, and it makes you look very put together. And then also remember that most audiences are sympathetic. So a lot of times the audiences are there to hear from you. They're not there to nitpick you. They're sympathetic to having to present, and they're aware that sometimes you'll slip up on a word. Your slide may go too fast. Audiences are sympathetic. Don't let it run you down. So these are in-person specific tips. So, obviously we've had a long year of online. In-person is starting to come back some, and we're having to defrost some of those in-person skills. So the first one is body language. This is the huge major tip and piece of advice that they always give for presenting in person. So body language is about 80% of communication. So if your body language is, nervous, you're kind of fiddling with your hands, you're staying in one place, that's what people are going to focus on. It's going to take away from your content. Stand with your shoulders up, not really chest out, but in a way that you can breathe deeply and feel comfortable. If you have a stage or if you have a little area, you can walk back and forth between points. Don't obviously, walk in a line back and forth. But if you're about to change slides, or if you're making a point and you want to glide across the room to keep their attention, then that keeps them engaged, and it also makes you look more confident. Stand, so don't sit beforehand. They say that sitting is very passive and it kind of builds up a lot of energy. So if you're standing beforehand, you're walking around, that engages your body before you're presenting. So that when you go in and present, you've already been active, you're comfortable, and you're ready to go. Do a meet and greet beforehand. So if you came early and set up, like the previous point said, and you've got some of your audience members sitting before you, it's always great to kind of just ask around, say hi, what's your name, how are you, what are you here for? So that way you have already some familiar faces in the audience once you get going on your presentation. It makes the audience feel more comfortable, and it makes you feel more comfortable with who you're presenting to. And then maintain eye contact. Eye contact, you obviously don't want to stare one person down the whole time. So when they say maintain eye contact, it's really just, sweeping the audience every once in a while, making eye contact, making sure that no one has any questions, is disengaged, or is confused. And it also makes them feel like you're paying more attention to them rather than your visual aid or a point on the back wall. All right, and so these are more Zoom or just general online meeting specific presentation skills. So obviously your number one thing is you want to check your equipment beforehand. We did check our equipment beforehand. So, the audio wasn't an issue beforehand, but sometimes things just happen. And that's another tip that I didn't really put on here, but when you're working online, you've just got to be ready for those technological interruptions. You've got to be ready to go whether things are working 100% or not. But check your equipment beforehand, log on early, have your presentation already pulled up. Make sure you can share your screen. You don't have any distracting tabs open or anything that you might click off on that might be distracting. Minimize potential interruptions. So like I said, close out a tab so that your email doesn't go off. If you work on Mac or Apple products, put it on Do Not Disturb so you don't have any text messages coming through, showing up on the screen. Log out of Skype for Business if you use that so that no one calls you in the middle of your presentation. And then put your notes next to or below your webcam. So this kind of goes hand in hand with making that eye contact on Zoom or online presentations. So if you put your notes next to or right below your webcam, when you're reading your notes, the audience is still going to track your eyes as meeting the camera. So it gives you an opportunity to check your notes. You're not having to fly blind, but you're also not distractingly looking down at a notepad that's to your left. And then make eye contact. So this is a little less intuitive than it is in person, but by making eye contact, that means just looking into your camera. So if you're looking at your little Zoom camera, it's going to show that you're not looking into the camera. If you're looking into the camera on a Zoom presentation, then what the audience is going to see is that you're looking at them. And so that's very important for online. It's less intuitive, though. It takes some getting used to. All right, so now we're going to go into visual aids. So a lot of times you get asked to have a visual aid while presenting. They don't just have you go up there flying solo. But visual aids are kind of tricky because they can either really give a lot of oomph to your presentation, or they can really take away from it and be distracting. So one of the most important things is use muted, easy to read colors. So if you use some sort of neon or you use like black text on red, that's going to be really difficult for your audience to read, especially if they're having to view it from afar. Use images that clarify your message. So, don't just take 5 different images that you can find from Google and throw it on there. Use one specific image or 2 specific images that's going to clarify your message and that doesn't detract or distract the audience. You can also, if you're giving research, instead of images, use data sets. So if you're making a certain point and there you have a graph that emphasizes your point, put that on the slide and don't have any text and just make that the main image for that slide so that the whole audience can see the image, the data that clarifies the point that you're making. So visual aids are for your audience, not for you. And so that's why they also emphasize having your own notes, right? Don't have all your information on the slide so that you can read off of. If you're looking at the presentation the whole time, you're not engaging with the audience. The visual aids are for the audience to help emphasize your point and to also give them something that clarifies maybe what you can't give just through speech. And then make them visible to your entire audience as well. So that goes back to that 30-point font as well as your images. Don't make something too small, especially if it's going to be a wider room. Once COVID, dies down a little bit, we're able to speak to more than 10 people. Make it something that everyone in the entire room can see and get something from. All right, so here's some visual aid resources. I'm going to jump around and show you some examples of these, but the 2 that I usually prefer or recommend is either good old PowerPoint. We're usually pretty familiar with PowerPoint, or Canva. So PowerPoint we'll go over first. It has a lot of great intuitive templates that already kind of serve your visual aid purposes. So it already comes with certain size fonts. It comes with very, muted colors, certain text boxes at different sizes that you may need. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this PowerPoint, and we'll go into the actual PowerPoint. So you can see here, say I'm starting the workshop PowerPoint on presentation skills. So what you can do is there's this little design tab that they have, and you've already got templates and things.
You can't see the PowerPoint. I think it's still sharing the Canva.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. There we go, PowerPoint. All right, so you've got your blank template, and in this design tab right here, it's going to be 2 over from the home. You've got various themes that you can choose from. So these are usually already pretty simple and easy to use. They've got some of those muted colors. They're not too overbearing. And you can see they already have color palettes as well that go together. It's not going to be any colors that if you put together, they're going to contrast too much. Your audience can't read. So it's pretty nice. This is a little bit of an outdated PowerPoint just from the computer that I'm using it on. It's great on more updated version on PowerPoint. When you usually go to a new slide, what usually happens is, you can type in we'll do like an outline. And then what'll happen is there's like a little design tab that'll pop up on the right, and it'll bring up designs that may be relevant to what you typed in. So it brings up those relevant visuals that you may need. It brings up relevant background visuals that make it easy to read for your audience, but is also very interesting and engaging. Yeah, and then that's what I was going to do. So on the new slide, when you make a new slide, you can just press the new slide button and it'll pull it up, or you can do the drop-down box. And you can choose what specific design you want for that slide. So if you're wanting to, like it says here, compare two things, then you can click on the comparison and it'll already pull up your main title for the slide, the two title boxes for what you're wanting to compare, as well as a bullet pointed list for each of them. The PowerPoint is very intuitive. It's been around for a while. And those newer versions as well have a lot of help and guidance for the visual aspects of it. So images, layout, it helps out a lot. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we're going to go back to Canva. This is what I was giving my presentation on. And so I really like Canva. So these are my designs, but it's great because Canva is free and it's online. You don't have to download anything. Usually present with PowerPoint, it comes free with a TTU email, the Microsoft Office. But once you graduate and you got to give meetings at work, maybe they don't pay for it yet, or you don't have your email registered yet, you may not have access to it. Or if you go into research and you still want to give presentations, you want to have really great visual aids. Canva is free. It's online. It has a paid service, but I made my entire workshop presentation using the free design. So it's really great. It's intuitive as well. And it's awesome because they have a whole presentation section. So you can see they just have a general presentation, one, but they also have one for if you're talking, an education presentation, one that works well with mobile devices, a simple one. So if you're wanting to be very minimalist, just use images, an animated one, creative one, portfolio presentations, as well as more business-oriented ones. So they've got pitch presentation outlines, one for a business meeting, marketing presentation. So they already have templates that already align with the visual aspects that are expected of certain presentations. So we'll go into one, we'll just go into the simple presentation, and then they pull up all the different templates that you can use for a simple presentation, and all of these are free. So say you want something that's very minimalist looking, just black and white, and then it gives you about 15 pages to choose from that you can use. You can apply all 15 pages and just go from there and fill in your own information. Presentation skills. Or what you can do is just use whatever you want. So say you want this as your main page, but then you want just a simple graphic afterwards. You can click on this, we'll add a page, you click on that, and then you can have your own order. So it comes with free templates. You can put them in the order they already give it to you. You can apply it in your own order, and it's great because it's free, and all you have to have is just an email to sign up. And so that's about all the information that I have just on presenting in general, visual aids, guides for that, and resources for that. So we do have time for some discussion, questions, and answers if anybody has anything. Does anyone on Zoom or in person have any questions? Maybe other suggestions for visual aids that you've used before that I didn't mention?
I like the presentation. I like how you said you muted colors that are easy to read. Do you mean between the text and the background?
Yeah, so muted colors, you usually use muted colors on the background, and then what that allows you to do is use just a solid color for the text. So you can use just something like black or white text, and you don't have to find anything that's like red or a dark purple. So yeah, the muted colors are usually for the background and any sort of like design that you have around it. So thank you for the question. Did that clarify it?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And a good rule of thumb is if you're going to use like a lighter color in the back, do a darker color in front. So if for some reason you did choose like a dark navy background, obviously black text is not going to look good on a navy background. So you'd want to flip it and do the light color in front. So do white in front.
Exactly, yeah. The colors, if you want to make it pop, you can obviously make it pop, but have the text be a contrast to that. The muted colors is usually a go-to, especially if the visual aid is just to be something to supplement it, because you don't really have to think a whole lot about color theory when it comes to text. You can usually use white or black on muted colors.
It also allows something to pop. Like if you want one focus on your visual aid to really stand out, having the muted color in the back.
Yeah,
allows something
exactly.
to stand out.
Exactly. Any other questions, comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you recommend or some advice if you already start presentation and during the presentation, a moment you get nervous?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So he asked, what advice do you have if, during the presentation you have like a moment of nervousness? You can use that as one of your pauses, right? So what's great about utilizing pauses is sometimes your pause isn't one that you planned, but if you've already used pauses beforehand, it's something that you can use to kind of just take a deep breath and just kind of reorient. And that's also a moment where you can stop and refer to the audience. So if you get really nervous all of a sudden, you can say, before we move on, does anybody have any questions? Do you have any clarifications? Do you need? Is my message clear? So that's a really great strategy, is if you're feeling nervous or you're not really confident in yourself, that's usually when you can deflect back to the audience. Ask if they need anything from you, if they, want to add something onto the discussion before you move on. It gives them time to engage, and it also gives you time to kind of reorient yourself, take a breather, and then, maybe feel a little better about yourself if the audience, you can tell they're engaged because they have a question or a comment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
You also mentioned like motion and movement. Like if you're giving a presentation in person or even virtually, you could probably have like a drink next to you, take that sip of water, walk to the other side of the stage, move behind the podium, wherever you're at. So movement can be really helpful as well to just kind of get those little anxious fidgets out.
Definitely. Yeah. Utilize that energy in your body. Any other questions?
I had just another one, not so much of a question. I just want to go back to where the slide and see where I missed. It's the one with 6 principles, the 6x6 rule.
Definitely. So this is the 6x6 rule. Did you just want to look at it again or have any questions about it?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because they look like two different slides, but it's the same information. And really what it does is it just takes the work off the audience. So as the presenter, it's your job to give them the information, and it's not the visual aid's job to give it either, because then your audience just feels overwhelmed. They're not sure what to look at, and they just start reading it like a textbook. So by simplifying it, giving them what they need to know and something to follow as you're speaking, it helps them out, and also helps you, if, like you said, you get a moment of nervousness, maybe you lose your place, you can look back at it. It's a simple list. You can catch yourself and be like, okay, yeah, we were on importance. Let's move on.
If you're anything like me, when you're in the audience, you're trying to write down possibly and take notes on whatever's being presented. And so if there's a whole paragraph there to write, you're too busy glancing, trying to write everything, and you're not really paying attention to the speaker. Whereas if you just have bullet points, you can quickly jot those down and then remember what the speaker was talking about.
Definitely. And if they don't catch something, follow that, 20 to 30 minute rule, leave room for discussion or questions afterwards. They can be like, can you talk about, this, and this again, so that they're getting the information from you and not the slide, and if they don't catch everything that you say, then you have time to come back around to it. Any other questions or comments?
One thing I've found is there's a website called Slides Go.
Okay.
So you download it, but it downloads templates for PowerPoint. So it's kind of almost a bridge between Canva and PowerPoint. They'll have about 50 different slides in a single deck. And they're free as long as you put the attribute slide at the back saying, thanks for Slides Go for letting me use this. And they have everything from more professional looking presentations to those fun and whimsical ones that tend to engage kids more often. And you can change the color scheme of whatever that deck is.
Sweet. Yeah. Do you sign up with like an email address, or how do you get access to Slides Go?
So I believe I've just downloaded it. I don't even think you have to create an account because it puts into your PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
So you download the template and then you can open that into a save as file from that for PowerPoint. So it works well if PowerPoint's more of what you're used to, but you still want to have a wider variety than what PowerPoint provides.
Awesome. Let me try and go ahead and open that just so everybody knows what it looks like. So you said slides go. Is it .com?
I always Google it every time.
Okay.
Not gonna
Maybe
lie.
we'll go ahead and just Google it.
URLs are not my friend.
Yeah, there we go. .com.
And it applies to Google as well.
Awesome. So this is what Brienne was talking about, slidesgo.com. And you said it kind of works as an extension to PowerPoint.
Yeah, so you download it and then you can open it in either Google Slides or PowerPoint, depending on the version that you have.
Awesome. Yeah, and so you can see here already, they have a bunch of different templates. So things like spring, earth, water. There's some latest themes. So there's like a business plan as well as other presentations. And so those are also ready to go templates. Like Brienne said, it works with PowerPoint, but it has kind of the look of Canva, but you can implement it into PowerPoint if you're not really satisfied with the options PowerPoint can give you. So thank you for that, Brienne. That's awesome.
Welcome.
I have a question as well. I noticed you're doing this all off the cuff, no note cards, no nothing in front of you. Do you have any tips or suggestions, since your content, you suggested don't put the content on the slide? How do you kind of memorize and practice your content to be an effective speaker when the time comes?
Definitely. So that's a great question. It differs depending on the presentation that you're doing. So especially if you're going to do it over something that you've already researched, you may not need a whole lot of notes, especially if you've done the research yourself. So you may just need like a note card that just has the order of the information you're going to go in. Or if you know it just well enough and the visual aid can help guide you because you made it, then you can just kind of speak off the cuff. If it's something for class, but obviously you put together and you feel confident speaking on, you can do that as well. This was something that I researched beforehand and practiced once I made the slides. So, I had the information ready to go and as a reference on the slide, just as a bullet point, but that bullet point was able to kind of help me recall the information and the research that I found that made me put that bullet point down. But, when you have something that may be a little bit more intensive, or it may be something that you may get nervous at, you're doing something like a pitch or anything like that, and you want to have more notes, then you can definitely have those at the ready. In person, you can just have little note cards, and those will be something that you can also gesture with, just have in your hand, make speaking motions with, and then just, refer to and gesture to the visual aid. And then on Zoom, it's, like I said, something that you can kind of put around your laptop so you don't have to disengage with the audience. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. I just was curious what tips you use because you were a very effective speaker for our presentation skills. I said, I want to know what Courtney does because it's a good method.
And a lot of it is practice too. Like presenting doesn't come intuitively. It's very unnatural to get up in front of everybody and be the only speaker and be the only source of information. Teachers are heroes because they do it every single day, but it's something that comes with practice. So in my position as a master tutor, I have to give presentations regularly throughout the semester. I do them in class because I'm history and German major. So we do a lot of research presentations, literature presentations. So a lot of it's just practice. And, using that tip, like 99% of your audiences are going to be sympathetic to you. That's the great thing about practice is if you just go and present, a lot of the times, and I've never had anyone tell me I've been horrible at presenting, they're going to tell you what you did well. And just having that practice under your belt is going to build your confidence because you're not going to really know if you can do it unless you just go do it. So it's one of those scary things, but, people are there to engage with you and they're not going to, critique you and then give you a paper afterwards with everything you could do better.
I used to not be a very good presenter because I would way over practice and way over prepared and like have a script in my head and know exactly. And then the minute if I misspoke or I missed something or like I accidentally missed a sentence that I had planned on, it would just all like crumble and I'd panic. And so I've learned that sometimes, at least for me, I do a lot better presenting if it is more like I know what I'm going to talk about, but I don't necessarily have a script in my head. I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to touch on and like look at the bullet points of the PowerPoint, but I don't necessarily over practice because I know it's very easy to do that too. So that's just something I've noticed within myself with presentation skills.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks for adding that on. I think one of the big things that people get worried about is just speaking. And I like to view it as like, I'm not giving a monologue. It's not a theater performance. I don't have to have these lines memorized and down because your audience isn't also like a theater audience. They're not there to just watch you. It's a discussion more than anything. The only difference with presenting is that you're the one giving them the information to discuss. So, presentations don't really seem like it's a discussion because you're speaking the most. But the point of it is to engage your audience, discuss with them, and have this back and forth that you both benefit from. Yeah, thank you for adding on to that, Elizabeth. It's something that the audience gets to engage in too, that you don't really get to do in Shakespeare or anything.
We are just about out of time, so I just wanted to do one last call for any questions.
I want to add on to what Brianne said about resources. There is one for visual aid I used a long time. It's called Unsplash. You can get really great quality photos there, and if you're doing a presentation on a particular topic, you just search that topic, and you'll get a lot of great quality images that you can use as your cover page or whatever.
Awesome. Do you mind sending that into the chat so other people can see?
I have.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I can't see the chat. I did want to say that, adding on to that, we'll go to the Untitled Design. Canva has photos as well that's free to use. So it's not anything that's going to get you in trouble for copyright. So you can see my previous searches here. Say I want images that are going to give the feel of preparing for a presentation or giving a presentation. So I just search presentation. Let's see here. Maybe I want to get rid of that and put in this guy speaking, right? So Canva has a bunch of pictures that are free to use, that are free of copyright. They're for public use. And it's great because you can search whatever you want. You can already see the trending. If you're wanting to do more like portfolio style stuff, you can do that. And you can also upload it. So I have a lot of weird pictures uploaded because I did an archive. But you can upload your own media as well. So I uploaded those pictures of the 6x6 rule and just put it into my presentation. And they also have elements. So if you just want some full little graphic on there instead of a picture, they've got little graphics. You can have little designs to put your pictures into, and you can have little animations. If you want to put charts in there, if you're putting infographics, they give you a template for it, and you can just adjust it from there. So a lot of great free intuitive design opportunities. So I really appreciate their public access pictures because it makes me feel like I'm not going to get in trouble for Googling a picture and saving it and putting it into my PowerPoint.
Well, thank you guys so much for attending our presentation today. If you have any additional questions and you're a TC student, feel free to drop by the Master Tutor offices. I'm sure any of the Master Tutors would love to speak with you about presentation skills, or if you need to practice a presentation, I'm sure they'd love to sit in on that with you and let you practice that. But thank you guys so much for attending today, and thank you to Courtney for this presentation.
Thank you guys, really appreciate it.